This conference is now being recorded.
Welcome to the New York State Association of School Business Officials webinar. Today's program is entitled, How to Best Support Your Food Service Director. Your host is Donna Clement, Director of Professional Development with New York State ASBO. Operator assistance is available at any time during this conference by pressing #. Following the presentation, you will be invited to a live question and answer session. You may send chat questions during the presentation using the chat window indicated by a speech bubble icon located to the right of the presentation. Please address chat questions to the Q&A group using the drop-down list located at the bottom of the chat window. I will now turn the call over to our host, Donna. Please begin.
Okay, thank you, Michelle, and welcome everyone. We're going to talk about food service, and we're very pleased to have Nancy Armacida. She's the Director of School Food Services at Hilton Central Schools. And for those of you who are aware, Nancy did have the flu, but she's feeling terrific today, and we're so glad to have her. As always, we encourage you to ask questions, and you can do that by writing your question, and we will be responding to it and make sure this session is valuable for you. And Nancy, it's all yours.
Okay. Thank you, Donna. And again, I apologize for having to reschedule. I have been in school food service for over 30 years. I have seen numerous changes. The job has become more complicated, as has everyone's. And one of the things that I believe is very important to a successful program is for you as the school business official to be aware of what your food service director needs to know and how you can help them. First of all, these are some of the things that a school food service director has to know today to run a successful program. Now, I realize, depending on the size of your district, some of these duties may be disseminated over a few departments, but the majority of them still fall on the food service director. First of all, and I will go into further review for each one of these, nutritional standards. 20 years ago, if a person just understood protein, carbohydrate, and fats, that was enough. We need to have a much better understanding of what we're feeding our children today. Secondly is health-related concerns and food allergies. And as I know you're all aware, you probably have several in your district. Number 3, of course, which has not changed, is affordable meals. We all have budgets to work within. Number 4, of course, is appealing meals. It's not going to do any good to make them affordable if no one's going to eat them. Number 5 is food safety. Number 6, which is important today, is customer service, and that's not a word that was even in a school vocabulary, I don't believe, 10 years ago. Some other factors are communication skills. Everything is about communication today via the Internet, webinars, print media, Internet again, with students, your district intranet if you have one, very important. Understanding cultural diversity in our society today is very important. I appear as I am redundant here. Communication, I apologize for that. Government regulations, they're continually changing. Some things, unfortunately, have not changed at all, and some are ongoing. Human resources, a factor which unfortunately takes up an awful lot of time sometimes. And lastly, purchasing and audit procedures, something dear to our hearts. I seem to be frozen. There we go. Your nutritional standards, as I said in the past, these were not anything that was a major thing. It was very basic. Today, I cannot even begin to tell you the questions I receive from parents regarding nutrients in foods. If your food service director has not had any formal training, they at least need to know how to interpret the data and information and communicate with parents about this when there are questions. Everybody's an expert today. I don't think you can turn on the television, open a newspaper, without seeing an article on children and obesity, high fructose syrups, foods in schools, whole grains. I know locally in Rochester we had a very difficult media experience here a few weeks ago with Rochester City, and they were in the news every night, their food service department, and none of it was positive. So your person needs to have some type of formal education, and if they've come from a catering background, if they've come from a restaurant background, they may have none. They can have a bachelor's degree in institutional foods without having taken one nutrition course. So that's something that needs to be addressed. There are courses out there put out by state associations and the National School Nutrition Association. One is called Healthy Edge, and it's just a 16-hour class that gives an overview. Of course, most community colleges have a basic nutrition 101, but I strongly encourage everyone who is a food service director today to seem to have some type of formal nutrition background. The second thing is to become familiar with the USDA nutrition guidelines and proposals. Every 5 years, we have a review federally on what is considered nutritionally sound for children and Americans. USDA seems to be about 5 years behind in implementing them. And here again, just 2 weeks ago on the national news, they did a story on how the guidelines have not been changed for 14 years. In my opinion, if you haven't changed things in your school in 14 years, you're really losing because the writing is on the wall. We're going to whole grains. We encourage more fresh fruits and vegetables with our students. It needs to be proactive, but you need to know where the government's going in that. I think one of the reasons that has lagged is that the last change that was made with the Healthy American Act in 1995 was the huge decrease in fat in schools. And a lot of districts struggled with that. There were districts who based their livelihood and their economics on French fries with fryers. So those districts had to adapt, and it has taken some of them several years to do that. But right now, someone really needs to be familiar with the guidelines that are coming down the pipe and know how to implement them. Food allergies and health concerns. This is something which we're just seeing more and more of. It's estimated that 10% of our school children have some type of food-related health concern. The most common allergies are soy, milk, dairy, eggs, wheat, peanut, tree nuts, shellfish. And I put dyes in there because for some reason I am seeing more and more dyes coming across my desk with notes from physicians, no red dyes, etc. This was something that was very popular in the early 80s, and I think it's making a resurgence. There are studies tying it into autism, etc. It's theories, but it's something we're seeing. Dyes can vary. They could be natural dyes such as beet juice. Could be in a Jell-O product, or it can be an artificial dye. But your food service director needs to know how to read a label. So if it says it's coated with whey, they know that's a dairy allergy. And the child that has a milquetoast intolerance can have that, but the child that has a dairy allergy cannot. It is imperative that this be explained to the staff, not just your manager, but your frontline person, your server, your cashier who sees the child with a no-no on their plate and handles it in a proactive, sensitive way to the child. We have more children who unfortunately have type 2 diabetes. We have had children who come through the lunch line and may have taken their insulin and lunch is delayed. My staff kind of has to have an idea if that child is sweating profusely, shaking, that there could be a problem. I have not had a problem with the HIPAA laws. More parents are more than willing to let people know if their child has a health concern. If you have a child with multiple allergies, which there are many, for example, soy, I have a child right now that has a soy allergy, a wheat allergy, and an egg allergy. There's very little that child can eat. He is given corn chips, and we have to make sure that they are the ones that were not possibly prepared with peanut oil because he also has a peanut allergy. If you have one of these children and they're on the free and reduced lunch program, the odds are they're going to be coming through that lunch line every day and possibly for breakfast as well. You need to know how to accommodate them. You cannot say no to that child. You cannot segregate them. And this takes some education. There are videos out there put out by the Allergy Network. There are many state groups. FAN is what such group that does allergy training. Most of it is free. I strongly encourage you to let your director go, bring someone in to talk to your staff. These are just lawsuits waiting to happen, and not to mention they could be deadly to a child. And I'm going to take a drink of water here for just a moment, please. The next thing, of course, is affordable meals. And this is not new. But what is new, I think, for a lot of directors is developing a budget. In smaller districts especially, I believe the food service director has relied on the business official to prepare the budget. Sometimes it is done and they never see it. If you are your business official and you prepare the budget for the food service department, I encourage you to please sit down with that person and do it together. Show them your past few years' budget, where it tied in. Did they exceed? Was there a fund balance increase? Show them the ST3. There are food service directors, and this to me is one of the saddest things. In August, they are told they lost money, and they're devastated because a good food service director takes this program very personally. It's our money, if you will. We work very hard. Our staff works very hard. And they want to break even. They want to break even. They want to be self-supporting if that's what you want and if that's what is expected of them. No one wants to fail. But if you are doing the budget, please, please sit down with that person and assist them and do it together. You have to understand, as most good food service people do, that it's a penny operation. Now, I have sat at BOCES meetings, and we have held up napkins where it's a tenth of a cent different as a group to decide what is the best bargain for us. Will they take 2 or 3 if we buy the one that is a little less money or not? And people will laugh at us. But if you're spending a half cent more on one item and you're serving 2,000 lunches a day, you multiply that by 180, that's just one item that makes a difference. It is a penny operation. I still look at pennies, and my budget is over $1.5 million, but every penny is important. The other thing that a food service director needs to know and understand is a profit and loss statement, and many of them don't have a clue. I am just very fortunate in that I had a little bit of everything in my background, and I worked for some wonderful business officials over the years who took the time to teach me many things. A profit and loss statement here again, when you sit down with your food service director and work on the budget, you need to explain to them what it is, what it's for, and how it all ties together. There are plenty of people who do inventory and don't know why they're doing it. They do inventory, unfortunately, just once a year as well. If you're going to start out small, if you've never done a P&L with a person, start quarterly. The other thing that I think is advantageous is to do it district-wide and not by building. There are too many variables doing it by building. And it's a great opportunity at this time to do like a mini financial workshop, tie in meals per labor hour. I know ASBO has a great many resources available to you, as does our state association. And I have to laugh because things change, but that's one thing that does not change is meals per labor. Some districts can get away with 13 and still stay in the black. Some need to have 19 or 20. Depends on the individual situation. But it's something that needs to be explained to the food service director if they don't have an understanding of it. This is just some things that I feel need to go in a P&L, and I know that sometimes some of these things are overlooked. The obvious are the type A lunch sales, breakfast sales, and I refer to it as other sales during mean time. I hate to call it snack line. Some districts call it meal enhancement sales. It's anything that is not a reimbursable meal. That would also include adult sales. Online payments, if you have gone to such a system, I know in my district we took in over $250,000 in online payments this past year, and it's growing. Catering, that's something I don't do a great deal of, and I know many schools no longer do as well. But that is another line. Vending, and I really think vending sales need to be separated from other meal sales so it can be monitored. Rebates, some directors don't bother with rebates. It may not be worth their while. However, I've always thought that you can hire a food service worker for an extra 2 hours a month to do rebates, and it usually more than pays for itself and gives you a nice profit return. There are also some government rebates, for example, cheese, and sometimes it falls through the cracks and sits there and never gets refunded because the paperwork has not been done. State aid. State aid is dropping, as I'm sure you're all aware of. Last year we lost 2%, followed by another 6% in our state aid. Unfortunately, those cuts came after most of us had done budgets. I personally don't see much of that state aid being around in the next 10 years. Federal aid, that of course goes up with COLA. If you have a higher percentage of free and reduced students, you have seen an increase proportionally higher in your federal aid than if you have had more paying students. Interest, ho, ho, ho right now, I'm sure. And surplus foods or government donated foods, depending on what you call it. While that's based on entitlement, and that varies, you may have had 17 cents last year. However, the price of the products have gone up. So overall, most of us in New York State are actually receiving less products than what we have in the past. In addition to that, several things are not available to us that used to be you're forced to process. If you want pork items in New York State, you will never get ground pork or pork in the raw form any longer. You will have to pick it in the form of a processed item, and you're going to pay for that. So that's something that really every year needs to be scrutinized. The price of processing the food, and then depending on how it's distributed, all tie into the cost. If, for example, you're going to divert $10,000 worth of chicken items, and it's going to cost you $1 a pound to get those back, the process cost, when you can buy the same item on the market for $1.40, is it worth it? Or would you rather bank your money and take plain cheese from your warehouse? Warehousing costs are a factor in there that are increasing. Availability of product, it's a gamble every year because those decisions are made 6 months before the school year even ends for the next year. So that's something that has become more and more difficult. There's several meetings every year for this, and I encourage you to please even attend with your school food service person if you need to have some background on it. The state holds meetings, and then regionally most directors get together because there has to be an ample number of items sent to each processor or no one will get their product. So they do meet and try to coordinate that. It's become one of the most time-consuming and most dreaded things to do in the school year. Expenses, of course, the obvious: food purchases, supplies, labor. Social Security, there are people that don't understand that they have to pay into Social Security for their staff. Medical, of course, and we all know that's increased. Retirement, life insurance, or anything else that you may have to charge. Contractual expenses, uniform allowances, the price to haul your commodity foods. And then meal prepayments. In my district, we cover the cost of that online service. I think the majority of districts right now are passing that on. We look at it as that it is a very nice service we can offer parents, especially those who do not receive the free or reduced lunch. They like the convenience of it. So that is obviously subtracted from our revenues and the convenience fee. Repairs, that of course varies, but if you have a buildings and grounds department that can do repairs, I strongly encourage you to support your food service program in that way, especially refrigeration, which is my biggest cost. Equipment. Any capital project you have coming up, please don't forget your food service department. I just had to purchase a slicer, and it was just under $5,000. I'm purchasing a combi oven, and it's going to be just short of $22,000. So it's some people work several years to be able to afford an oven in their district. Most of the equipment in school food service programs, if you talk to any equipment salesperson, will tell you they treat it lovingly. It's well taken care of. It's only used 180 days of the year, usually one meal a day. So the equipment lasts a very, very long time. But anything that you have that you can help out in that arena is greatly appreciated. Other factors that come into play, obviously, are labor cost and benefits. I know of school districts that have staff who have been grandfathered and work 4 hours a day and have 100% medical still being paid for them. That's a pretty expensive benefit to pay for someone who is making $9 an hour, 4 hours a day, and they were getting a $10,000 benefit. With escalating costs, and I know that you certainly all see it in the rest of your budgets, it's affected ours as well. Any time that can be addressed is helpful. Right now I have, for example, the staff that I have that are receiving medical, every one of them plans on working until they're at least 62, possibly 65 because of the medical only. Most of them have been here over 20 years. I don't foresee my medical costs decreasing at all. It is a wonderful benefit to pay someone, and I believe that everyone should have it. However, it's something that is killing some programs right now. Other benefits, of course, some of them which have been in there for years, 4 personal days. I know districts that have 5 personal days for staff that work 180 days, et cetera, et cetera. But those are all factors that affect the bottom line and that need to be considered. If you're in one district and you have 1,000 kids and your food service program has always been able to break even or make a profit, and you work somewhere else, and it's pretty much run the same way, it's probably the labor cost that's killing it. Central kitchens, I believe central kitchens can be a huge labor saver. Your labor can be consolidated, food can be distributed, made the same day and distributed, provided you have the proper equipment to transport it that meet the safety concerns. Commodity food usage, some districts move it in and move it out as soon as possible. Some, for whatever reason, have it stored. The theory years ago was take whatever you could, take the maximum, take all you could. You may not get it next year and hoard it. That doesn't work any longer. First of all, the way our entitlement is now and the way that commodity foods are ordered online, there are districts that order their maximum by February, and they're shut off for the rest of the year. It's kind of something that has to be watched every year, played with every month when you go in for that ordering. Don't order any excessive amount unless you know that it's not going to be available the rest of the year. And that's when good communication with OGS, with other directors, and networking comes in. If you've heard that OGS or USDA has not ordered any more cheese, and every month you order the maximum you're allowed, you're going to want to keep ordering it, and you know that you're going to have to buy it. However, if you are guaranteed that it's going to be there every month, as much as you can be guaranteed, and you want to put your funds somewhere else and take the gamble that there might be left over in May, go ahead. Something else that affects the bottom line, of course, is community expectations. If you have a very active wellness committee, your food costs are liable to go up. Healthier food costs more. It's no different than when you go to the grocery store. A loaf of whole wheat bread usually costs more than a loaf of white bread. Fresh fruits in season in the middle of January and February are going to cost more. But here again, your community will drive some of that. If your community doesn't mind that your program needs to be subsidized somewhat, if your director's salary needs to come out of the general fund, perhaps some of the medical benefits could be picked up, that's wonderful. To me, that just shows that the food service program is integrated into the educational system, and I think you're to be commended for that. Community also may expect the food service program to do sports banquets. Your school district may be the main employer in your area, and if that's the case, then your food service department is expected to be very community involved usually. But the bottom line here is you need to convey to your food service person what the district and community expectations can be for them. They need to know what they're dealing with. And that changes, as we all know, with school boards changing. Appealing meals. This is maybe very basic, but what was basic before is not necessarily basic now. There still are some districts who can get away with only 2 meal choices, a hot meal and a sandwich every day. I don't know of any out there that are still doing that. Basic now means a hot meal, a sandwich meal, a salad meal. It might mean a yogurt lunch. Expectations have changed. Therefore, what we offer has to change with it. How involved, again, here your community is going to dictate what you offer. There are communities in parts of the state that are very much into organics. That's going to cost a lot. They're into wellness. It drives cost. And a lot of us try to deal with a lot of local suppliers for produce, for example, anything that we can within the realms of the bid laws to offer that and to keep that involved with our community. When people are being surveyed today on what's important to them, the word fresh seems to be a driving force versus, for example, organic or natural. People want fresh fruits and vegetables. They want fresh offerings. It's just the trend word right now, but it's expectations. And I don't think you would have seen as many fresh fruits and fresh salads on a menu in the past as you do today. Kids like them, they expect it, and it's wonderful to be able to offer it. What is traditional now may have been trendy 10 years ago. Food courts are not new. Food courts have been around in schools now for well over 15, 20 years. And the problems that we knew we'd have with them, we have. Theft, for example. There are many schools that are going back to your, if you will, traditional serving line because it controls theft and it's fast. There was a reason that it stayed around for so long. So if you're looking into a capital project right now and reconfiguration, I just encourage you to let your food service director go out and visit schools their size and see what they have. Encourage them to take pictures, bring them back, show your architect or whoever your capital project person within your building. Please let them be involved in doing this. It's all about the presentation for kids. And if you walk into a cafeteria that has not been updated in years, and you walk in and you look at it from the customer's perspective, going through those doors at lunchtime, and what do you see? And a food service director encourages their staff to do that as well. You have to look at that from the kid's point of view at that point, and is it appealing? Because if the same posters have been hanging there for 2 years and nothing has changed at all, it's not appealing. It's just as you and I get tired going into a same restaurant all the time if nothing has changed. We don't want to go there every day. A good food service director, when you plan the menu, after you're done with all the regulations, the nutritional requirements, your commodity foods, you make sure that it has color, texture, taste, and odor. We eat with our eyes, and a child will look at your eyes. You can have a colorful menu, but if the kid comes in and picks the chicken patty on the roll and the cream of broccoli soup and pears, it's going to be all white. But at least try to offer something else that's more appealing with the eye, the visual. And remember that all of this has to be done within the budget. And there are days where you know you're going to lose money on that meal, and that's fine. Maybe a special holiday, maybe an item that you want to offer once a month to your kids. Sometimes it's worth it to lose a little money one day to bring up your ADP so that you'll be eligible for more commodities as well. But things do vary, and we have to change with them, and you need to encourage your person to change with them. Food safety. Here again, there's always something in the news. This morning there was a news story on E. coli and ground beef in the Northeast. So the first thing I did when I went into work was to go to the USDA website and to see if I could find any information. Now, within the past month, there was a newspaper article regarding the USDA and how slow they are to respond to schools on recalls. We had a spinach recall this past year. 2 weeks after the recall, I received the email regarding it. I am happy to say that right after lunch today, I did receive an email, on the beef, assuring us that no government-donated beef was involved. But your person needs to be aware of this, where to go, how to find the information. Every school district also needs a HACCP plan. And a few years ago when that became a requirement, State Ed Department put on workshops for everybody. I believe it was an 8 or 10-hour workshop to train people on how to have a HACCP plan. HACCP stands for Hazardous Analysis Critical Control Points. And if your district doesn't have one, when you have your CRE or SMI, you will be cited for it. In addition to that, you should have one person, at least in your district, and they usually advise one per building, who is SerSafe certified or has your county certification, depending on the county you live in. Monroe County is known as one of the strictest counties in the Northeast. They have their own program where they offer training at 2 different levels. It's also not enough that your food service person be knowledgeable in it. They need to know how to implement it. They need to know how to do ongoing training with their staff. They need to know how to stress this. No one wants to be known as Salmonella Central. I mean, you have a problem with food safety, and you might as well just forget it. It's a food service director's worst nightmare. So in this area, whether or not there's been money budgeted for this, it needs to be done. I recommend that every staff member attend some type of training, even though the law may say just one per building. That one person can't be everywhere at once. You just need one person who leaves something out too long or doesn't temp something properly, and you have a sick child, and it's all over. So I cannot stress this enough. And it costs money to have this training and ongoing training as well. These certifications aren't once and you're good. Some of them are renewed every 3 years, some of them every 5 years. But this is something which is just terribly important. Customer service. And as I said, this was a terminology that wasn't very familiar to our industry in schools anyway, years ago. Now it's a very interesting thing because the first thing that I try to tell people when I'm interviewing for a job is that the kids are our customers. And you may think you have a captive audience. You don't. There are plenty of other options available to people. First of all, when you have a food service program, you need to figure out what type of options you want in your district. And breakfast is something which amazes me because we have plenty of school districts that don't have it, and you could still opt out every year. We have school districts that have it with a high number of free and reduced students who serve very few breakfast. And when that's investigated, it's usually found it's a matter of timing. Students get off the bus. If the cafeteria is way at the other end of the building from their classrooms, they're not apt to go down and get it. We, in all of my buildings right now, have breakfast in the classroom. They could eat it in the cafeteria, depending on the building, or take it to the classroom. We don't serve anything with syrup. It creates a mess, and that was one thing that teachers said, okay, if they're going to have breakfast in the classrooms, we need to make it so it's easy to clean up, and that was no problem for us. We have buildings where they come in and put everything in a bag. We only purchase pre-wrapped things, and they carry it right down, eat at their desk, and put the garbage right back in the bag. We have buildings where teachers allow them to come down for up to 45 minutes. Some of them will let them come down and take their coats off, get settled, go back. The big deterrent I have found when I've done testing, and I will look and I will have 2 first grades, one of them that serves 9 breakfasts a day and one which serves 0. both of them have the same number of free and reduced students. What I found is it's usually teacher influence. If a child has morning work to do, and if that morning work does not get done, they lose recess time, they're not going to come for breakfast. They want their recess. And we constantly discuss the importance of breakfast, and I guess the best way that I feel that we can address this is to say to adults, you eat breakfast. If you came into school and you couldn't have a snack and you didn't eat lunch till 12:30, and yet you got on that bus at 7:15 in the morning, and maybe you were up at 6 and went to the babysitters first, and yet we expect them to do the majority of their learning on an empty stomach, it's not advantageous to us at all. And I mean us, I mean the educational setting. They're kids, they need to eat, and they don't have that option of sitting at a desk and opening up their tote bag and taking out a muffin or a granola bar. Therefore, that's an option that if we want to serve our customers and our community needs to be considered. Other options are vending. You may have a school in a rural area or at the edge of a village. A student in a high school, for example, may have lunch at 11 o'clock in the morning. They stay after school for football. They're not done till 5. If they ate at 11 in the morning, continued with class, went to football training, maybe don't get home till 5:30, they're starving. If you're a 16-year-old boy who needs 5,000 calories a day to maintain your weight and to grow, you have to have another option. There are vending machines today that are healthy choices. I was lucky enough to receive 2 through a grant, and they're refrigerated. We put yogurt in them, we put milk and cereal, we have pre-wrapped sandwiches, fruit. That's not to say that we don't have baked chips, but we give them options. And the interesting thing is the healthy items go faster. We do cheese and crackers. We don't do wine. I've been asked if that went with it one day, but we offer them what they want to eat and what's good for them. And that's a service. Vending can be a real pain in the neck because there is always a certain amount of vandalism and things that go wrong, but we are here for kids, and that's an option we have for them. Catering. Sometimes in a small town, the school food service department has always done the football banquets, the sports banquets, senior breakfast, etc. That's something that I think you're seeing less and less of for various reasons. Number one, are you competing against a local business? Number 2, have you outcosted yourself? I know my staff gets time and a half for an evening function. When the local business can hire people or high school kids for less than minimum wage, and I'm paying $17 an hour, there is no way I can compete, nor should I. He's a local business who needs that business. I have never depended on catering to keep my program in the black. However, if you do, you have to make sure that everything you do is within the health code. For example, if anything is going to be catered off-site, frequently you need a catering health permit. Everything you do, you're working on your school health permit. And that goes the same way as if you're bringing in outside groups. If a caterer is going to come in and do a sports banquet, they should be from a licensed facility. And this is where your food service person may need some backup, because when you tell someone, I'm sorry, you can't have a potluck supper, they become very defensive. You're basically saying that they're not clean enough, and that's not the case at all. It's a matter of liability. I don't know what every other health department in the New York State County Health Department has, but Monroe County strongly encourages anything brought in that's not from a licensed facility. And we implemented that about 10 years ago. And it's to the point now when people ask and we tell them why, everyone is very understanding. We have not had any problems. Initially, yes. And if you're going to go to that or you're in that point, that's really where you need to back up your food service department, because community relations can be everything. Another area of customer service that I have always found a little interesting is the teacher influence. Teachers will often use the menu as a teaching tool if they're teaching basic nutrition in elementary schools, etc. And it's important that that menu be a good reflection on you and your department. Everything from graphics to proper spelling on the menu, grammatical errors can be on the menu. And this is where the food service department, and I cannot stress this enough, is a part of the educational system. And I'll go into that a little later, but your food service department needs to be seen positively by the teaching staff because it's only going to hurt them if they're not. The other thing is staff training, and I don't just mean sanitation, but I mean basic customer service training. When a parent calls and has a question, it may be a new parent and not understanding what's on the menu. It may be, can she eat this? She has an allergy to soy. Is it all right? All of your staff needs to know how to treat a customer, whether it be, I don't know, I'll send this on to someone that does, whether it be to giving the person the correct answer in a polite manner. And it can be a student, and nothing makes me shudder more than a group of high school kids coming down and having serious questions or asking for something on the menu and being dismissed. Kids are the customers, and they have to come first. And when you look at them, and you could do a lot of promotional things for kids, but here again you have to look at it, is it good for them? SpongeBob milk a few years ago was a big thing. I didn't know who SpongeBob was, so on Saturday morning I watched television. All right, SpongeBob might have been cute, but I didn't think personally he was a good role model for a 6-year-old. So I didn't buy the product. That was just something that was my judgment, and I felt good about the decision. Lunchables. Well, Lunchables have been criticized. They're a high-sodium food, etc. You can make your own school Lunchables, if you will. Is it going to appeal to your customer as a kid? Yes, but make it good for your kid as well. And here again, it goes back to enter in as a child sees it. If a child walks into a kitchen or a serving line and the quote-unquote lunch lady has a hairnet on, where else do they see a hairnet? They don't. They go into McDonald's, there's no hairnets. They go into your local diner, the odds are there's no hairnets. They can have a hair restraint, such as a visor on. That's more friendly to a child than a hairnet. So you have to look at everything from that child's point of view. Cultural diversity, something that cannot be ignored. The influences of the different cultures, and I don't care if you're a small town with possibly a high migrant population at times, or your district is growing in certain areas. You may have a district that has for example, we have several Ukrainian students, and it's been very interesting to me learning about their diets and giving them things when they first are here that they'll accept. One of the things that I found out, for example, in New Mexico, I have a friend who is a director there. They have French fries on their menu once a month, but they offer rice and beans several times a day, or a week, excuse me. And French fries are just not that popular. Now, that just blew me away because I thought every kid liked a French fry. It can be something as simple as pizza. Every kid, for the most part, likes pizza, but in certain areas, thin crust is more popular. Other areas, it's thick crust. You may live in an area where buffalo pizza is as popular or more popular than pepperoni pizza. So that varies a great deal as well, and that's something that people need to be aware of. Economics, of course. As I mentioned earlier, paying with credit cards online. It's customer driven. It's what's expected. It's what people are used to in other avenues. I will tell you that our online prepayment system has greatly reduced the number of bounce checks that we're experiencing. The other thing that people need to be conscious of is the way children eat. They eat with their hands, they eat with their eyes, but sometimes cultures affect that. Studies have shown that certain cultures, for example, Hispanic cultures, children tend to eat slower, and food is very much an important part of their culture. Food is love, and they're a group of ethnically people who do tend to still sit down together as a family and eat. And it has been found that Hispanic children, if they are rushed through eating or have a lessened lunch period, often get very upset by it. And I think that's something that your director needs to understand, your staff needs to understand, but these are things that people need to be educated on. Convenience. We're a society of convenience right now. Today's Generation X people overall like convenience because they view it as time that they can spend with their family if they do something that's easier. And it's important to realize that what we offer is a convenience to people, and we need to keep it that way for them. Gender plays an important part. Every year around prom season, we sell more and more salads to girls. Every year in the fall, or in the winter when we have wrestling season or football players, pasta is in demand. It's a small little thing, but it's something that we like to offer students that makes them feel good about themselves. Lastly, the Internet. I think it's important that you stress to your food service person, if they don't already know, the importance of the Internet. And by that I mean chat sites, blogs, and how their department is viewed. If you have a website, it's wonderful. Putting links on there to healthy options, whether it be to even food companies, restaurants, children's sites, is important. However, your food service director cannot do that alone. Does your district offer classes on how to create a website? If so, is it opened up to your food service department? You may need to have a webinar person, a webmaster, someone who will create a website for them or work with them. I certainly could not do it. Fortunately, I have an assistant who did attend a district directed class, and she does a very good job. But it's a very time-consuming thing. And, just because your district has never had a food service website doesn't mean they shouldn't have one. It's what people expect. People will call, is the free and reduced lunch application available online for them? Can they download it? Is the menu, my child didn't bring it home, he was sick last week, is it online? Those are all things that society expects today, and we need to change with it. Communication. I'm sure it's the word that all of you hear. We don't get the communication. There's no communication. It's almost become a buzzword a fallout word for everything. But in this area, it's something that's essential. Sometimes as a food service person, you think that you're a PR person or you need one just to publicize what your program is doing and doing well. Whenever there's a story on the national news or about another district, it may not apply to you at all. I cringe when I see the stories about soda being served at school. We've never served soda at school. I don't even have a soda machine that's been available to students ever. But people will see it on the news. It's important that you let people know the good things you're doing, but does your food service director know how to do that? If they're not invited to attend things, for example, health fairs, open houses, and if they're not the type of person that is self-directed enough to invite themselves, I urge you to please put them in that spot. You could see from this photo, this was just a health fair. Every year, it used to be nicer when we had more government commodities. We would do a whole thing and usually try to introduce a food that wasn't very popular, like trail mix, and do a little PR on it. I've also gone in and done science fairs on food and growing food. I've done, I can't even begin to tell you all the opportunities that are out there to publicize your program. I know food service directors that have even had floats in the homecoming parade. Now, I'm not that ambitious, but I thought it was a wonderful thing she did. There are food service people that will hook up with a program, for example, Dole fruits and vegetables, and they'll be able to get freebies. I've done focus groups for major companies that have come in and cooked for students and done testing for them. They need to get out there and publicize their program. If they're considering a new pizza, even if they may know which one, but they're not sure, they need to contact the advisor of the perhaps honor society or the student government and say, look, can I provide the snacks one day for your group if the kids will let me know which one they like best? And they need to be out there and being visible. They need to tell them that, okay, this pizza's got a whole wheat crust or a whole grain crust. It's good for you. They need to let parents know that, no, we only serve low-fat mozzarella in our pizza. And that's why when you take the bite, the string doesn't keep on for a foot after you take the bite. It's because it is a low-fat item. We don't offer anything but low-fat milk. We buy our produce from the local grower, all we can. We don't have any fryers. Publicizing the program is one of the most important ways to have a successful program there is. You're not going to make everyone happy, but you need to let people know what you can do for them. And that's parents, teachers, and all staff. It can be something as minor as the first day of school, when everybody is there and you usually have a staff breakfast and everyone comes in. Your food service people need to be out there as well. It isn't just hiding behind it and setting it up and disappearing. They need to feel that they are a part of the school district. They need to feel good about themselves and about what they do, and not just put in the back. And sometimes that's how they view themselves. They need to get out there and communicate what's going on. They need to let people know that less than 30% of our meals consist of less than 30% fat. They need to be able to, as well, communicate with the Board of Education. If you do an annual report on food service for your board, or a monthly, or if you have to present the budget or cost increase, let your food service person be present with you, or make them possibly even give the presentation with you or on their own. Now, I know there's probably a lot of food service people right now who would kill me for that, but I cannot tell you how important I think that is. They need to let people know what they do and do well. And if they don't do something well, it's going to drive them to improve it, in all honesty. But the communication is essential. They shouldn't just be in the background until there's a problem. They need to be right out there. And here again is the Internet is an important way of communicating. I cannot tell you how many emails I receive now from parents, probably as many as I do phone calls with questions. It can be something as, I've had questions, my child loves such and such soup, and we've put the recipe on our website, to allergy questions, to my child doesn't like the pizza this year, what did you do differently? And those are all very important things. And I just think that the Internet has been as wonderful as it is difficult for us to deal with. And seek will see, and this is something in my own little mind, and forgive me for being a little crude, but there is a misconception out there that if it's cheap, it's crap, and that's something you need to overcome. I know I have raised lunch prices different years, and my participation has actually gone up. And I can't help but wonder, was it the perception that the meals were too cheap, they couldn't be any good? I don't know. But there is that misconception out there, and that's why it's important for every opportunity for your food service and for you to encourage them to get out there and tell them what they do and do well. Government regulations. We have a lot of them in this program, which I'm sure you're aware. The first, of course, is the free and reduced lunch program, and it changes every year. Every year the policy book is available online, and every year there's a few little hidden changes in it. Your person needs to, I don't care if they take that home with them in the summer and read it, everybody needs to reread that every year. They need to go where to find the answers, whether it be organizations, classes, a mentor, another director, or if you hire a consultant, perhaps to come in and help if you're having problems in your program. They need to know when. It's a horrible thing when a district gets their hands slapped for sending their lunch applications out too early. Something as minor as that, nobody likes that to go to a board, or when you have your audit to have that mentioned. Something as little as that doesn't need to happen. They need to know who to contact even within the district for things. Beds forms. I think your food service person needs to have an understanding of what that is used for, because, as you know, our numbers change September 30th to October 1. So you may have more kids on the program September 30th than you do October 1. By October 5th, it may be back up there because people have not gotten their paperwork in for the free or reduced lunches. If Bed's Day, as it was this year a little later, that's to the district's advantage. But if your food service person is used to sending those figures out October 1, and that's what's being used, you're actually losing a little bit of money. So they need to have an understanding of that. Just explain it to them once. What is Bed Days? What is it used for? If they came from private industry, your food service person, they don't necessarily have an understanding of these rules or regulations at all. And it's, pardon me, but it's sort of like educational jargon at times. Prepare a rubric. That tends to be an educational terminology. And if you say to the person on their annual review, I need you to do a rubric, blah, 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 they may not understand and obviously not want to ask. So it's important that you realize what this person's background has prepared them for. They need to know how often to do their regular stuff. It's very sad when you hear of someone who was new who missed out on 2 months' worth of commodity food simply because they didn't know when they had to do it. It's no one's fault at that point. Maybe there wasn't proper training. It was something that fell through the cracks. But this is where you perhaps, especially if you have a new person or a person who is struggling, need to review with them on occasion. And lastly is why. Not everything makes sense. For the life of me, have never understood why I need a copy of applications for children that are in different classrooms or different schools by family when it's all online right now. But I'm still required to make a copy of those applications for auditors. It's a waste of paperwork, but it's required. So it's just one of those why reasons. Human resources. This really is something that can vary by your district. You may hire someone or you may have a food service person and you need to convey what level of involvement you want them to have in the HR issues. Do you expect them to do the hiring? And if so, do they have an understanding of what they can and cannot ask an applicant or how to conduct an interview? Common sense is not that common. And if a person has not been trained in it, I mean, here again, if you're a registered dietitian and you went to college, you may never have had any courses in human relations. Therefore, it's your responsibility as the business official to monitor that. Is there a union? What's the past history? Evaluations, terminations, negotiations, basic civil service laws, basic labor laws. One of the biggest things in schools, and I know I have to constantly get on my staff, is you're working over 6 hours, you need to have a half-hour lunch. It's a New York State labor law. They don't want it. They want to work 6 hours and 50 minutes and leave work. Well, I know those basic labor laws. Unfortunately, if I didn't, we'd get our hands slapped for violating them. But that's something that is very important because it's one of those little things that shows up on an audit. Another thing in this is past history. If you have someone who's relatively new, has the staff been mistrustful of that person? You want to move on and get over those past problems. HRs, unfortunately, can be something that takes up so much time in a day, and it can also be one of the biggest headaches, which we all know. My favorite area, audits. I'm in the middle of another one now. Here again, especially if your person came from industry or even college feeding or any area, they did not deal with bid laws. If you can provide that person with a copy of the school law book or sections of that apply, that's very important. You need to go and review with them. Don't wait till you get an audit that says, okay, you didn't get any quotes and you spent $5 or $500 and change. You went over the limit here. You need to explain that to them, the reasons why. A little audit purchasing 101 workshop. And I don't know if, excuse me, I know as a business official you're very busy, but I also know that you oversee transportation and you oversee buildings and grounds. And maybe one afternoon if you have a meeting and you go over some basic rules on what is required and give examples of how you can get those little verbal or written quotes. When you're in a hurry and you need that piece of equipment immediately repaired, it would be helpful to everybody. If they're active in a cooperative bid, The food service person needs to be active. They can't just be a member of that bid. They need to attend the meetings. We have a little saying in our group, no show, no vote. And there are times when the person has regretted it or at least not conveyed, please keep these items on the bid, or I need this spec for my program, and they lose. They need to be able to attend these meetings. They need to be released from work to attend those meetings. Currency flow. Once in a while, go in and review this procedure with them. It's easy to have things change and you're unaware of it. You all of a sudden may have a staff member who decides that, they're going to do the deposit this way. But that person, your director, needs to understand what it is the auditors are looking for. Nobody wants to be making a mistake. No one wants anything bad to go to the school board, that they're not accounting for something, that their daily cash receipts are missing this or errors. They need to understand the importance of that and the headache that it's going to cause you. Record maintenance. Once in a while you get someone who just destroys things. I don't understand why, but I've been in school food service for years, so I know the importance of keeping it. It doesn't make sense. Why would I keep this? It's a year later. Out it goes, and then you get an audit and it's gone. They need to know what that record retention schedule is, and that's something that's got to come from you again. This isn't stuff that's easy to find on the Internet, nor is it stuff that's going to necessarily occur to someone to go and look for. And another thing, which is a regulation, which is something that sometimes works to my advantage when I'm asked why I can't do something, is a regulation that you as the business official really need to back up your food service director, and that is student monies may not be used to subsidize adult meals. When you're asked why teachers can't have the meal for $2, when you're asked why they can't provide breakfast for the district for $2.25 a person, a full breakfast, that is the rule, and student monies may not be used to subsidize adult meals. I have had teachers question what I do with the sales tax. I'm thinking it's more aggravation for me, believe me, to do that tax report every quarter, and we have to cut a check and pay for it. I mean, I don't know what they think I'm doing with the tax, but you as the business official are their backup for this, but also you can help convey why these rules and regulations take place. All of you want a professional. All of you want to have someone who's a good reflection on your school district and community. And in order to have that, you have to encourage membership, I believe, in professional organizations. Obviously, you're all a member of ASBO, so you understand the importance of it. There is a National School Nutrition Association. There's a very active New York State Nutrition Association. And the person needs to be released and have time to go to that. In addition to that, those things cost money. I mean, to attend a 3-day conference, we all know, will cost several $100s. Maybe that money can come from the district professional development and does not have to come from the school food service budget. I try to encourage as many of my staff to attend our conference when it's in the Rochester area for a day. They always come back with something, and it's the morale builder. They come back. They had a good time. When they come in Monday morning, they have a smile on their face. So when that child comes through that breakfast line or that lunch line, he's greeted by someone who's smiling, and that's what you want. Encourage them to be on district committees. You have a safety committee meeting. You may have audit committees. They need to be on those committees. It's a sad thing when you have a food service person, director, who only sees a principal when there's a problem. They need to be visible in the district. They need to be a participant in the district. Regular meetings, and by this I mean you and them. Whether you meet monthly, whether you meet with all your directors monthly, whether you meet quarterly to go over a P&L or finances, they need to know that your door is open to them. They can come to you with any questions or concerns they have, and they may be questions about laws and regulations and bids. That line of communication has to be open so that they don't feel stupid or ignorant and not know and be afraid to ask you, and you don't want them to err. That is communication, and something as simple as, believe it or not, when the school calendar changes. Frequently in June, if you haven't used snow days, the calendar may change. And, last week you may have half days in the elementary. Plenty of parents use the menu as a calendar. It goes on the refrigerator. If you haven't communicated that, the menu goes out. It's wrong. And it's on someone's refrigerator. And that has happened to me before, where we have had people put their child on the bus, and for whatever reason they missed the communication from home that the schedule changed. They didn't know that was a half day. They need to be included in all communication. And today with email, that certainly shouldn't be a problem. Training. They need to be available for all the training. If your district is doing sexual harassment training, for example, online, you don't want them to receive the email, we're doing sexual harassment training online. You want that director to know that you're going to be doing it, and they can convey that to their staff. They need to be a part of the school community. And one last thing I'm going to impart. This is the best scenario for any school district, that the program stays in the black and you as the business official don't get phone calls. And that was told to be one of my favorite business officials years ago. And that was my evaluation. And I walked out of that office thinking, he's right. We've stayed in the black, and when parents call, I've been able to satisfy them that it hasn't gone further. Staff, I've been able to take care of any problems that it hasn't gone any further. That's what you want. Any audit problems, you want a person who's going to run that program, run it well. But without your support, without the communication from you, without them knowing that you're there to help train them, they're not going to be able to do that. So thank you very much, and I hope I'm on time, Donna.
Oh, yes. Very good job, Nancy.
Any questions?
Yes. Now we're going to ask Michelle to come on to talk about how to ask a live question, and we're encouraging all of you who are listening to key in a question here. So Nancy covered a lot of areas. There must be something else that you want to know.
And I'm sorry if my voice started to give out.
On some of those areas. So Michelle, let people know how to call in.
Thanks, Donna. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who would like to ask an audio question, please press the number 7 followed by the pound key in your telephone now, and you'll be placed in a queue in the order received. Wait for your name to be announced, and you'll be placed on queue to ask your question. Again, audio questions, 7 pound on your phone now, or continue to send chat messages via the chat function on the right-hand side of your screen.
Okay, thank you. And Michelle will let us know when there is a live question.
Okay. And I see a Kathy Kravitza was in.
Yes.
All right. I used to work with Kathy. Hello, Kathy.
Oh. Well,
I don't know what district she's in any longer.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, you could put that into an email and we'll find out. And she's saying hello. Mm-hmm. All right. Melissa Morlang says, do you have a P&L format that you can share?
Oh, sure. I can email. It's one that actually I created probably 15 years ago with a budget director. And at that time, it tied right into the ST3. It was just a simple Excel sheet that we created ourselves. Over the years, I've added and tweaked it, and it works very well. I do it every month. Well, I take that back. I don't do it in September because it's just a nightmare. I wouldn't have time. But I do it for the most part every month, and then at the end of the year, the business director and I sit down and we compare everything. And we're pretty well. I mean, we're good.
Good.
And it's essential to me. I would like to stress, if you start using a P&L, you're not going to start showing anything in the black till around February. And a lot of new directors will panic. It'll be November and they're in the red. That's normal.
Okay. Well, that's certainly a good point to let everyone know about. And what we'll do once we get the listing from Comfortel of all of those who have attended, and Nancy sends me the Excel sheet, I'll send it out to all of you. So we'll provide that.
I years ago, obviously it wasn't on the computer, and I used to spend time doing each building's P&L. And as I said, I've just never found that to be accurate, because you could have a building where 3 people get medical and another building where no one does. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a waste of time. So to me, it's more important to do a district P&L and then a breakdown by meals per labor hour by building. And that ties into where you have your weaknesses.
Okay. Now, I know that there's been a lot of talk about buying local.
Uh-huh.
And what have you learned about that?
Well, in New York State, from my understanding, as long as you contact the people in your district via your school calendar or something that contacts that you are, for example, entertaining quotes on apples is one of the things that we buy here. I had a terrible time trying to find growers who would participate. I actually found my grower by walking out into the field one day, my heels sinking into his orchard, and he was hesitant because of they're used to COD. And I had to explain to him, no, it's not going to be COD. I need you to give me a dated invoice, explain the procedure. And he was willing to try it for a few months. Well, after 2 months, he called me and asked me if there were any other districts who wanted to do this. I mean, it was the easiest. Every Monday he pulls up in his pickup truck to one of my buildings and drops off 30 cases of apples. And he even sorts them for me, small or large, so I can have less waste because my elementaries will get the small ones.
Right.
In addition to that, I found out that he left small pears on the trees because no one would buy them retail. Now, he now picks them for me. I get a great price, and I get small pears. I also get plums and peaches from him in the beginning of the year.
Wow.
We don't have many choices here as far as what we can buy all year, but I continue to buy from him and cider, as long as it's pasteurized, as much as we can. We have to work within the bid laws, of course, for everything else.
Right. But certainly, what a good partnership.
It is. It's a great partnership, and they're fresh. I call them. I could say, the kids don't like, that flavor or that apple. Let's, forget the Golden Delicious. Give me an Empire or whatever. And we're certainly bypassing the middleman. I could never understand why we do that when they grow them right, literally behind us in the school.
Oh my!
So
that certainly works out well.
Sometimes it takes a little legwork. I've asked the Apple Association why they don't send out a list to schools of local growers who are willing to sell to them. And I've just never gotten a positive answer. To me, it just makes sense. Why wouldn't you do that? They may be great growers, but sometimes they're not the best business persons in the world. But it's a win-win. It's a win-win for everyone. Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
It is. I'd like to say something else that
Sure.
I feel that a food service director today has it much harder. When I started years ago, State Ed had 3 to 5 day trainings for new directors. Now it's a day and a half, and there's a lot more to learn. Funds have been cut. I think it's much, much harder. I know in Monroe County we have taken on more or less a mentoring program among ourselves, and I am now the oldest one, and I will be retiring in less than 2 months. We've talked about that, how people, how they can help one another, and it's very sad because there just isn't the resources, and I think sometimes we're setting people up to fail. And I guess the business official really needs to, in my opinion, really help out, especially if you have someone new that has not come from another school, or you've plucked that person, if you're a small district, from one of your kitchens to elevate. They need some support. And it's very hard. I think it's very hard for new people today.
Well, and we're finding that with the business office as well.
Yeah.
The business office doesn't have the support that it had from the state education department.
No, exactly. And the regulations, the nutritional and the allergy piece alone have become very scary. There isn't, almost every day I'm asked something by a school nurse. I work, one thing also I would say, if you have your food service director can hook up with your local community dietitian. We have 2 in Monroe County that work with juvenile diabetes, and every year we send them what we're buying so they have an idea of the carb counts. And I send it to my nurses as well. However, this way that when they sit down with the parents, the dietitians at the hospital, and the children, they know what's on our menu.
Oh, that sounds like an excellent idea.
It saves a lot of grief on our end as well. But, it's a continually and it's a growing problem.
Well, and keeping your community informed is just so important, and as a good business official will do that. And it's nice to know then that they have their directors for food service, transportation, and so on doing the same thing, keeping everyone informed, and that political piece we're finding to be so very important. And then it supports the superintendent, and it also supports the board that way. So,
and I think the community expects more than what it used to.
Oh, definitely. I think we would all agree with that, yes. Yes.
One of the funniest questions I've ever been asked was June of one year, I had a parent call me and ask me how many potatoes she had to boil to make potato salad for 50 people.
Oh.
And I thought to myself, okay, I've never been asked this by a parent. And, you know, as I spoke to her, I was on the Internet and directed her to a website and got on the answer form. But I thought that's a nice comfort level where people feel comfortable enough to call you up and ask you that question, I guess.
Right.
So.
Yeah, she must have been having a big party.
It's 10 pounds, by the way, for 50 people, in case you need to know.
Okay, good.
So. But.
Amazing what you can learn on a webinar.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, anyone out there? We only have that one, and we certainly will send the P&L to all of you. And Nancy, I think you've provided some great information. You certainly have a good background.
And if I can be of any assistance in the future, let me know.
Yes, and I think you're stay in the black and don't get any calls for the business office is certainly an excellent piece. And I think you've also provided some good information for the business office to know that how to go about hiring a good person for food service. So thank you very much.
Okay.
And just for those of you who are still on the line, want to remind you that the IRS auditing webinar is November 4, and going to talk about that idea of who's the contractor, who's the independent, and so many other issues with employment. Also, November 12th, there is a Medicaid webinar that's coming through the New York State School Boards Association, and it's going to be by the Inspector General, and it's free. So check with your superintendent and your school board about that November 12th Medicaid webinar. We also are having a November 16th monthly planner, and we're going to talk about the budget process, beginning it and continuing it. And Mike Powers from Carthage School District is going to be the one who will be the presenter for it. And if any of you are in the New Paltz area, we have an Accounting 1 workshop for November 12 and 13. And those are our public service announcements for this afternoon. Thank you all for your time, and look forward to seeing you on another webinar.
Thank you very much, Donna, and thank you to our speaker, Nancy. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's New York State ASBO webinar. Thank you all for attending, and have a terrific day.
Thank you.